They already were the youngest team in the NFL. They already had a very talented roster. I don't like this move by Gutekunst to get Micah Parsons. I love it.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Power Rankings Tuesday. We are officially in regular season mode. Hope everybody had an outstanding extended holiday weekend through Labor Day. We got off to a good start yesterday with a great interview with Bill Barnwell on the RTFP. Always fascinating to hear the success he's had predicting teams to be much improved or much worse than they were the year before. But here we go. It is regular season NFL schedule. So we had the college draft on Monday with Emory Hunt going over his 10 best bets for college football week 2, which is always fun. We got the Power Rankings Tuesday here on the RTFP. Tomorrow, a little change up from previous years, Pick Wednesday. We got a Pick Wednesday. Thursday and Friday, Greg Cosell, part 1 and part 2. And then the Saturday sit down, an interview with me and someone else in the world of football that we think you guys will believe is interesting. You can always check it out, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL or wherever podcasts can be found. We also have not one, but 2 even money betting podcasts. Today will be your typical even money podcast where Steve Fezzik and I will make our picks against the spread for the Even Money Podcast. And Thursdays, our new second episode every week, where we will talk about player props and parlays and line movement and get Dr. Chow to chime in on the injury issues that are relevant around the NFL. It is officially game week, and I will be in the booth in 2 days already with Kevin Harlan for the Eagles and the Cowboys to kick things off. Thursday Night Football, opening night, going to be absolutely electric. Today, though, it's our first Power Rankings Tuesday of the season. As a reminder, the Power Rankings are, I don't go by record, I go by who I think would win if these two teams went against each other in a best of 7 at a neutral site right now. I don't care if it's my backyard, Wichita, Kansas, which team I really think would win a series, right? Like they do in the NBA or NHL or baseball, because that's ultimately who I think is the better team. The Power Rankings are presented by West Shore Home, the experts in bathroom, window, door, and flooring products. Visit westshorehome.com/Ross to get started. West Shore Home, remodeling reimagined.
It's time for the all-important Power Rankings. The worst team in the history of the NFL is...
All right, Ross, the 32nd team in your inaugural Power Rankings for the season, New Orleans Saints.
Boy, I certainly know how to ingratiate myself with the home crowd. I'll be doing Cardinals at the Saints on Sunday for CBS. That's my debut for CBS this year, my first game. You know, the Saints right now, in particular, quarterback's a huge question mark. But I think you could argue that they've got question marks elsewhere still. You know, tight end, offensive line, in particular at left guard, but they got some moving parts around there. I think they probably feel best about receiver on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, it's a new scheme. I like some of the things that I saw from the Saints and just watching their preseason tape on that side of the ball. But I don't think they're a dominant defense by any means. They certainly weren't last year. So, you know, it's not a surprise, but the reality is the teams at the bottom are the teams that have the worst quarterback situations typically. Spencer Rattler will get the start for New Orleans.
31st, Cleveland Browns.
A lot of the things I said with the Saints, you can say with the Browns. Joe Flacco is first up. I would say having a average at best roster with a very likely below average quarterback, that's rough, right? And that's where some of these teams find themselves, like the Saints, like the Browns. By the way, I have Browns Ravens week 2, so I really know how to get the people that are going to be watching the game on my side. But listen, I got to go by what I see or what I think. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully they're both awesome. Hopefully the Super Bowl is Saints Browns. I highly doubt that, but that's where I got them to start the year.
30th, Tennessee Titans.
So I think the Titans will be improved. I think the quarterback will be a decent reason for that. I also think that the roster is better around Cam Ward, in particular the offensive line, but it's still not an above average roster. And, Cam Ward's going to have ups and downs like every rookie does.
29th, New York Jets.
I'm not really quite sure what to make of the Jets. Was not overly impressed by the minimal stuff we saw from them in the preseason. Justin Fields, again, when you're down here in this territory, you're looking at teams that have quarterbacks that haven't really proven that they can be a top 20 guy. Justin Fields certainly falls into that category. And it's not like, I think the rest of the roster is okay, but I don't think the rest of the roster is enough to prop Fields up. For them to move up, Fields is going to have to play better than he has so far in his career.
28th is the Carolina Panthers.
Saw where they signed Hunter Renfrow. We talked about that. And Coker on IR. That really stinks. They did some better things towards the end of last year. And Bryce Young in particular did some encouraging things. I guess I still need to see more, right? I still look at them and think a bunch of average and still probably not a top 20 quarterback if you actually write it down.
27th, New York Giants.
There's a lot of people that think the Giants are going to be much improved. I don't know that I can go much, right? I think their D-line has the potential to be nasty. We all recognize that. I think that they'll hopefully get more consistent quarterback play. But a lot of these teams, right, and the Giants are included, it feels like the starting quarterback is just kind of keeping the seat warm for the next guy, right? You think about that Rattler and Shuck and Flacco and Dylan Gabriel, and that feels like the case with Russell Wilson and Jackson Dart.
26 is the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Not quite sure what to make of them. There's a lot of talk about how much better people expect them to be on offense with Liam Cohen being the head coach there. I still think it's wild how much money Liam Cohen got to be the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach. He did some really good things last year with the Bucs, but Bucs also have a really good offensive line and a top 10 quarterback and a really good receiving core. I don't know that the Jags are quite there.
25th is the Seahawks.
This is like the range, Jack, where I'm not quite sure. Like, I feel pretty good about where the top 15, 16 teams are. I feel pretty good about the bottom 5 or so. Seahawks are like one of those teams, if they won 6 games or maybe even as many as 11, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not expecting Sam Darnold to play as well as he did last year in Minnesota. And I think that's as big a reason as any why I have the Seahawks at 25. I'm quite sure that their fans think that they should be higher than that.
24th is the Atlanta Falcons.
So they're talking up these young edge rushers, Jalen Walker and James Pierce. Obviously, they're very excited about Michael Penix Jr. I will just say losing Caleb McGarry, their right tackle, who's a big part of their success in the run game, losing McGarry for the season, that's a big loss. That is a significant loss that they're going to have to prove they can overcome throughout the course of the year.
23rd, the team I'm wearing today, the Miami Dolphins.
Is that a Dolphins jersey?
It's a Brandon Marshall Dolphins jersey.
Wow. So the coloring's interesting because this is why people need to watch youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. I thought that was a Bucks jersey. That looked like pewter to me. Now that you say Dolphins, well, now I see the logo on the side, the orange Dolphins jersey. Man, they got a lot of bad stuff going on. Now their linebackers coach is placed on leave because he got into a legal issue. I don't know that they fixed the offensive line situation. The corners are a mess. I mean, the only reason why they're this high is because of Tua Tagovailoa and the offensive weapons. Otherwise, I think that they have a chance to really struggle this year.
22nd is the Raiders.
The Raiders. Well, so we've talked about it a lot this offseason with Steve Fezzik on the Even Money Betting podcast, but they've made major strides, in particular at quarterback and head coach, and at running back with Genti. You would think just those three things would go a long way towards the Raiders being more competitive than they were last year.
Next up is the Indianapolis Colts at 21st.
And I'm bullish on the Colts. I think if Daniel Jones can stay healthy, right? And I think that's what Bill Barnwell said on yesterday's show, right? Like if you knew that Daniel Jones could stay healthy, I am one of the people that thinks he's going to play pretty well in Shane Steichen's offense. I think Steichen has a perfect offense for Daniel Jones to get rid of the ball, the RPOs, those type of things. I think he's going to play at a functioning level. I think the Colts are going to be in this thing until the end, although they kind of have been the last couple of years, even with the up and down quarterback play.
20th, Chicago Bears.
The Bears. It's funny. I went on a Bears podcast and I thought I was being, very objective and just kind of talked about some of the positives with the interior offensive line and some of the concerns at tackle and Caleb Williams. And, this is that time of year, Jack, where fans are so happy, excited, optimistic that if you say anything bad about their team, they're like blown away. But Caleb Williams and those tackles, like those guys still need to prove it. And, the tackles in particular, it's kind of now or never.
Next up is the Dallas Cowboys at 19th.
How about them Cowboys? So listen, I talked about it yesterday. I keep thinking about this. I just can't believe they traded arguably the best defensive player in the league in his prime. You spend so much time on the pre-draft process just hoping that you can crush it and get a true difference-making player like Micah Parsons as a draft pick. They got him, and then they let him go. And just the message that sends to that locker room going into the opener, everything about it's bad. The only reason why they're here is because I think Dak is a good quarterback, and they've got weapons, and I think Brian Schottenheimer is going to prove to be a competent head coach, and they'll win 7 games or whatever.
18th, New England Patriots.
So I'm not quite as high on the Patriots as other people seem to be. They have that pretty high season win total. We don't talk betting a lot on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. We have a separate show for that. But their season win total meaning what people are expecting is 8.5. That seems kind of high to me. I know they've revamped the O-line. I do believe that Drake May is going to be a good quarterback. And I certainly think they've upgraded the head coach position with Mike Vrabel. But that's not the same as saying that they're going to be a playoff team. I'm not quite there. Although if they're 18, they're certainly right there in the mix in my mind.
Minnesota Vikings, 17th.
The Minnesota Vikings. So another team where I think they'll be solid. I have them for like 8 or 9 wins, as you guys heard when I did the NFC projections a couple weeks ago. But listen, J.J. McCarthy unproven. They just had to trade for Thielen because they got some receivers down. I think it'd be a major accomplishment, especially in that division, if they can win double-digit games with essentially a rookie quarterback.
At the halfway mark, you got the Arizona Cardinals at 16th.
So the Cardinals have made major strides. They won 4 games and they won 8 games. Now they've really added from a personnel standpoint on the defensive side of the ball. Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson. So the Cardinals, who I will see on Sunday for CBS, they are certainly poised to take that next step. I would just say that the step from going from like 8 wins to 10 or 11 is harder than 4 to 8. 4 to 8 is like going from bad to respectable. Going from respectable to actually being a playoff team, especially in their division, where there's no gimmies with the Niners, the Rams, and the Seahawks. It's going to be a battle for the Cardinals, but I certainly think that they are a playoff caliber team, especially if they can get consistent play out of Kyler Murray. But we've been saying that for years now at this point.
15th is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
They feel like between 7 to 10 wins, don't they? I mean, I feel like we can just plug them in for that, although it's never 7 or 8. It's always 9 or 10, so you got to give Mike Tomlin credit for that. They always actually exceed expectations. I don't know that any of us really know what to expect from Aaron Rodgers at this point. Your guess is kind of as good as mine.
Los Angeles Chargers come in at 14th.
San Diego Superchargers, San Diego Chargers, go. Chargers, go. So that's a big, big loss, losing Rashawn Slater, an all-pro left tackle. Then you got to move Joe Alt from right tackle to left tackle. They say, by the way, Najee Harris is acting like he's going to be able to play Friday night in Brazil against the Chiefs with whatever the eye issue is that he's had. So that will be interesting, but we'll see. I don't know that I feel like the Chargers improved that much. And in fact, clearly I think they took a step back with that loss of Slater, which is just extremely, extremely unfortunate.
13th, Houston Texans.
So the Texans, I don't know that they're better than they have been. They are elite at edge rusher, corner. Hopefully Stroud bounces back. What I don't like about them right now is this weird Joe Mixon situation. They're unsettled, I would say, at the running back position, and a lot of moving parts along the offensive line. What we really are talking about when we do these power rankings before week 1 is how many question marks a team has. Texans still have several.
12th is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So the Bucs, I think, have a puncher's chance to really make some noise this year. I mean, they should have last year. They kind of blew that playoff game against the Commanders, but especially when they are healthy, when Godwin comes back with Ibuka, Mike Evans, Bucky Irving, Cade Otton, top 5 offensive line, Baker Mayfield's top 10 quarterback. They just need to get better play on defense, which is interesting coming from Todd Bowles being their head coach.
11th, Cincinnati Bengals.
It took a while, but they got all these contract situations settled. Hendrickson should be supremely motivated being on just a 1-year deal. They're hopeful that Al Golden, the new defensive coordinator, will be room for improvement, but the offense should be fantastic. Because, they were fantastic last year, and I think that they believe that they're better at both guard positions. Time to finish this episode strong right after this. It is game time, baby. Literally and figuratively. I will be in the booth, Westwood One, Thursday night for the opener. Cowboys at the Eagles. Those of you looking at YouTube can see I have my beloved Game Time app open, and I'm looking, and right now, the get-in price for that game, $497. You want to talk about a hot ticket. The good news is they have other NFL tickets for as low as $100. The fees are included, which I like, right? I always get fees included. I don't like surprises. So you know your total up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code ROSS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code ROSS for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. All right, I got a new idea for Labatt here, okay? If you guys go to rewards.labattusa.com and you get any of the incredible merch they have, I have the fridge, the mini fridge, and I have the cooler backpack. If you get anything, I will send you a signed autograph in the mail. How awesome is that? Just go to rewards.labattusa.com. This is obviously after you buy some Labatt, you upload your receipt. That's how you get exclusive merch. It's the only way to get this merch. Rewards.labattusa.com. But if you do this, if you buy beer and get gear and show me proof with an email to ross@rosstucker.com, I just decide I'm sending you an autograph in the mail. ross@rosstucker.com. Rewards.labattusa.com. It's like a win-win-win.
We enter the top 10 with the Los Angeles Rams at 10th.
So I don't really know what to do with the Rams. You know, they were very good at the end of last year, certainly gave the Eagles a run for their money. But the situation around their left tackle, Alaric Jackson with the blood clots, that's a major question mark. Then you got Stafford with the back. Like I said, they just have a couple of major question marks that we need to kind of look through these first few weeks and see how those guys are doing.
9th is Denver Broncos.
So the Broncos are coming. They are, I think they exceeded all of our expectations last year, which is always fun to see. I don't think anybody thought they'd be a playoff team in Bo Nix's rookie year. Sean Payton is a good coach. He's a flat-out good coach. I think that they still have an excellent offensive line. Weapons are there. Defense is loaded. They look poised to maybe even being good enough to win a playoff game or two. I don't have them going to the Super Bowl, but if they take the next step, in particular, Bo Nix takes the next step, they could be in that mix.
8th, Washington Commanders.
So I think some people could have them higher here. You know, I'm a little bit skeptical of whether or not Daniels has sort of a sophomore slump, sophomore slide. We'll see if he can pick up where he left off. I actually think Bill Barnwell on yesterday's show with the teams he expects to be worse, he made some great points about what they've done on fourth down. And they had a lot of good fortune, the Hail Mary last year. I don't know that they'll have that much good fortune this year.
7th, San Francisco 49ers.
So I talked about this before. I'll talk about it again. The 49ers are polarizing, right, for a lot of people because people aren't quite sure what to make of them, whether or not they'll bounce back. I think they will. You know, now listen, I don't know. Week 2, Trent Williams, McCaffrey, and all those guys could get hurt again. But I kind of think they're going to be ready to go. And they were not as bad as their record indicated last year. They got Saleh back as the D coordinator. I think the Niners are going to be a tough out this year. They are my pick to win the NFC West.
6th is the Detroit Lions.
So I can't remember where the Lions finished up last year, but I do think that losing both coordinators, that hurts. Losing Frank Ragnow, their Pro Bowl center, that hurts. However, they still were arguably the best team in the NFC last year. You know, one of the best teams in football. They won a ton of games for a reason. I don't know how much the loss of the coordinators will hurt. So maybe I dropped them a peg or two, but I didn't want to drop them too much till we actually see it in practice.
5th, Green Bay Packers.
My second highest ranked NFC team. I can see them moving up. They already were the youngest team in the NFL. They already had a very talented roster. I don't like this move by Gutekunst to get Micah Parsons. I love it. You think about the history of this franchise, right? When they got Reggie White, it meant Super Bowls. When they got Charles Woodson, it meant Super Bowl. They don't go out and get guys in free agency or trades from other franchises very often. But when they do, even last year, Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney, when they ID a guy on another team in Green Bay, it works. And guess what? Micah Parsons works anywhere. He's that good.
4th, Buffalo Bills.
So I feel pretty good about my top 5, in particular my top 4, right? You know, you got the Eagles in the NFC, and then you've got these 3 elite teams in the AFC. It's kind of remarkable how good the Bills have been, considering, you know, they don't have the same number of All-Pro and Pro Bowl players as the other teams around them, but very good players, very solid offensive line, and they have the MVP of the NFL. Said it before, I'll say it again. They need to win that division easily, and they need to get the number 1 seed because they have the easier division than the 2 teams I have ahead of them.
3rd, Baltimore Ravens.
I think last week, Steve Fezzik on Even Money called them the regular season champions of the world or the regular season juggernaut, and that's what they've been. But guess what? That's also what we're talking about right now. I think if the Ravens played almost any team in a series of 7 games, I think the Ravens would win against most of them, but maybe not our top 2.
2nd, Kansas City Chiefs.
So you guys heard my preview for the AFC and NFC predictions a couple weeks ago. If you didn't, you can go back and always listen or watch youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. But I think the Chiefs are better at left tackle. I think they're better at receiver. I think they're better at tight end. I actually think Travis Kelce is going to have a bounce back year. And the Chiefs are on a mission after losing that Super Bowl the way they did to the Eagles.
And number 1, Philadelphia Eagles.
Number 1 team is presented by Smirnoff, the official vodka sponsor of the National Football League. Smirnoff, please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York, vodka, 40% alcohol by volume. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. Who else would it be at this point? Last year's Eagles were one of the best teams we've ever seen. They still have the best roster in football. I'll believe they're not the best team when I see it. They're loaded again. They got some question marks, especially on defense. We'll see if, once again, those guys can prove to play as the best defense in football. Other than that, make sure you're checking us out on social media at Ross Tucker NFL, at Ross Tucker Pod. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. I couldn't possibly love more than I do, and making sure people know how much you love them. It's important. Life is short. myfrontpagestory.com, backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.